Welcome to Hot Tees and the Center for T-Shirt Excellence, where we make your t-shirt dreams a reality. Normally, we would bring our custom apparel experience to you, but since we can't be on site today, we have created an online store that will be available for the next 5 days. Every shirt is made right here in our shop in Harrisburg, Oregon. Let me show you some of the options that we have. This tie-dye I'm wearing is one of my personal favorites, but wait, it's missing something. That's better. And if tie-dye isn't your style, we have a variety of other options. And we even have jackets and hats. Some say what we do is a little bit of magic, but to us, it is just part of a normal day. We hope you will shop with us online at hotteesapparel.com/Mount Hood Jazz.
What began in a small workshop in the Sellwood area of Portland over 75 years ago has now grown into the largest piano dealership in North America. For 4 generations, one Portland family has been honored to serve the piano needs of musicians, schools, institutions, artists, and music lovers throughout the Pacific Northwest and beyond. This is the evolving story of classic pianos, and the story of the Eunice family, a family steeped in the love of pianos. It all began when Maurice T. Schuster, a violinist with the Portland Symphony and piano technician, opened a small piano shop that specialized in tuning, servicing, and restoring vintage pianos. Within a short time, his reputation as a master piano technician was well established and the business grew steadily. The growth continued, culminating with bringing his grandson, Maurice Eunice, into the business in the 1970s, nurturing, coaching, and cultivating Maurice's love of pianos and piano restoration. After his grandfather's passing, Maurice continued in the piano business, eventually opening and growing a successful piano retail showroom in Portland, and then selling that business to a large national chain. In the early 90s, Maurice began serving as a piano and promotional consultant assisting piano dealers, and in early 2001 opened another small piano showroom in Portland with his son Brian under the name Classic Pianos. Soon Maurice was joined by his other sons, Aaron and Taylor. Since that short time, Classic Pianos has grown into the largest and most awarded piano dealership in the US, with 7 showrooms throughout North America, including Portland, Seattle, Denver, Albuquerque, Las Vegas, Boston, Anchorage, and now serving all of the Hawaiian Islands. Even though the company has grown nationally, at its heart, it is still a family-owned and operated business with the belief that music can change lives for the better. Maurice has often said, "We deal with dreamers, professional pianists, teachers, beginners of all ages who want choices." Each pianist longs to find the perfect piano that suits their particular taste and preference. Ask what he means by choices, and Maurice explains it this way: "We continue to partner with the best manufacturers and never stop researching to ensure we offer value and quality. We carry pianos ranging from entry-level studio and professional uprights to heirloom models from Börsendorfer, Yamaha, Schimmel, and Estonia, as well as a comprehensive collection of nearly new, like new, and restored Steinways from every era."
To see how Classic Pianos can serve you and your piano needs, visit us at classicpianosportland.com.
Hey!
Hey!
Hi!
It's time to crack an egg.
Easy, any style egg works here.
Or smile.
Well done, this looks great.
Time to share a
I
story
have a great way to start our discussion.
with old friends or new ones.
When you're a caregiver.
Time to breathe in,
Inhale up, good job.
then let it all out. It's never been easier to connect, learn, and have fun.
Cheers!
So let's do it together. Come find us at aarp.org/near-you.
Hello, my name is Rawl Andrews, Vice President of AARP. And on behalf of AARP and our AARP Oregon team, welcome to the 2021 Mount Hood Jazz Festival. As you know, jazz is a uniquely American art form that is deeply rooted in the African American Black tradition, culture, and heritage. But more importantly than any of that, jazz is just food for the soul. It provides a measure of peace, it can provide a measure of comfort, and it can provide overall healing in a time like this when we need it most. So what I want you to do now is just sit back. I want you to relax and just take in those smooth, comfortable, cool, healing sounds of American jazz. So on behalf of the organizers of the Mount Hood Jazz Festival and your good friends and wise defenders at AARP, welcome to the 2021 Mount Hood Jazz Festival. Thank you and enjoy.
Hello, and welcome back to Day 3 of the 2021 Virtual Mount Hood Jazz Festival. My name is Dan Davey. I'm the Director of Jazz Studies here at Mount Hood Community College and the Festival Director of the Mount Hood Jazz Festival. We have an exciting day planned for you today, including this session, which we'll get to in just a second, with the incredible Trent Austin. We have a masterclass later today with saxophonist Dino Gavoni of the Berklee College of Music, and performances by the Rudresh Mahanthapa Hero Trio and the Mel Brown Septet. Really exciting. Check out mhcc.edu/jazzfestival for the full schedule, and make sure you check out our online store for all your festival swag. If you'd like to make a donation to the festival so we can continue to be able to provide musicians with work and education and inspiration for you at home, the link is below and also in the chat. If you'd like a free way to help the festival, take that link and share it with your family and friends. Thank you. Please make sure you like and subscribe us on all our media channels and click the notification bell so you get notified if we go live or if we post a video. I'm so excited for this morning's session. Trent Austin's a fellow Bostonian, fellow Red Sox fan, and he owns Austin, or he runs Austin Custom Brass in Kansas City, which is where I bought my Adams A4 horn from. Absolutely electric personality, fantastic musician, and it's going to be an awesome session. So I'm going to turn this over to Kyle Smith, who is one of our guitar instructors here at Mount Hood Community College. He'll be moderating this session. So Kyle?
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the 2021 Virtual Mount Hood Jazz Festival. We're excited to bring you 3 days packed with interactive webinars and performances from artists around the country. Thank you for joining us for this next session, which is going to be a masterclass with Trent Austin. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors, including AARP Oregon, Clackamas County Bank, the City of Gresham, Classic Pianos, Gresham Sanitary, the Gresham Center for the Arts Foundation, Austin Custom Brass, and Spinella's Restaurant. These sponsors, as well as several partners and supporters, have allowed us to bring this festival to you this weekend. You can visit our website for a complete list and to learn how you might also help support the festival so we can continue to elevate our jazz community both locally and beyond. During our session, please use the chat for any questions and comments you might have. This next session features Trent Austin. Trent is a celebrated trumpet artist, educator, and entrepreneur. He's got numerous awards, honors, and rave reviews of his performances throughout his career. He's performed with a lengthy list of music who's who, including Tony Bennett, Natalie Cole, Joe Williams, Maria Schneider, and many more. He's a dedicated educator, teaching clinics, master classes, and lessons in trumpet and jazz improvisation around the country and around the world. So let's just get started with Trent Austin.
Thanks so much, Kyle, for having me. And Dan, thank you so much for the invite. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be. So very happy to be here. And before I start my long, lengthy chat about weaving in and out in terms of how we approach notes. If you have any questions that might come up during the session, please make sure you put them there, and we'll do our best to address them. So it's a beautiful day here in Kansas City, and since I have moved and lived in Kansas City now for many years, I feel like the founder of our modern jazz language of bebop, Mr. Charlie Parker, I felt like he was a great person to begin what I'm going to talk about, which is approach notes. Now, it can be kind of boring, and if you fall asleep, I won't be able to see you actually fall asleep during this class, so that's okay. But just be sure to record it so you can check in when you wake up. We often, as educators, we talk about things like guide notes, right? And I remember when I was a young wee laddie in the great state of Maine, my band director saying, this is a guide tone. So it's like, if you play this, you're never going to be wrong because it's a guide tone. And I remember often, as an improviser, and I'm going to do some playing to demonstrate the benefit of what we're going to talk about, of always being guide tone oriented. The title of this workshop is all about target training. And if you want to think about it as being someone who's an archer, right? So it's not, the whole philosophy with them is ready, aim, fire. Often, I think, as improvisers, a lot of us don't aim. I know myself personally, as a trumpet player, we don't aim. And often, we're not ready. So the whole idea of ready, aim, and fire can be a little skewed. So by doing some prep exercises, especially when it comes to doing something that we all practice, or hopefully we all practice, which is arpeggios, this is going to help a great deal. So let me give you a couple playing examples to start. We think of Charlie Parker as being the founder of a modern musical language, and every musician past Bird, even someone like Ornette Coleman, when Ornette Coleman would go and play concerts and sound check, he would play Charlie Parker solos. It's very hip because that music, Lee Konitz is another wonderful example. He recently passed. He said, before you play far out, you need to learn how to play far in. And that comes with deep roots with bebop language. So I think a typical example of Charlie Parker is, if you know any of Charlie Parker's rhythm change solos, he ends the 8-bar phrases very much, and I'll play a little bit from Kim, I think it's Kim number 1. So let me just switch a mic here. And it's, hold on. It's a cold day here in my practice room, so I got to warm up my horn a little bit. Something. That was my Zoom joke of the day. One thing you'll see on Charlie Parker's solos and rhythm changes is at the end of 8-bar phrases, he often plays that sound. And it can become, if you take something like the Omnibook, you'll see it. And I counted, there was over 45 versions of this single approach in rhythm change solos. And you say, okay, well, it's Charlie Parker. We can, if we put a Mount Rushmore of improvisers of the jazz language, you have Louis Armstrong. You probably should put Duke Ellington on there for all of the compositional work. Then you have Charlie Parker and John Coltrane. So that's our Mount Rushmore, I say. If Charlie Parker does something and repeats himself over and over and over, it's probably okay for us to do it. And how we implement this. So this whole concept of these exercises, it's from one of my dearly departed teachers, who I think was a true genius of jazz improvisation. His name was Charlie Banakis. And being someone who grew up on the East Coast, he was one of the hippest cats in the world. I remember my first lesson with him. I was playing something. He's like, yeah, man, you checked out Charlie Parker, man. That's cool, man. But you could practice that some other way than just playing Charlie Parker. You ever feel that when you're playing a transcription of a solo and you feel like I can't bridge the gap between the transcriptional part of it, where I'm just literally maybe popping it in while playing, and then the This is me playing this in the style of Charlie Parker. And eventually, in the style of Charlie Parker becomes the style of you. This is cool because this helps, get you around that. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about just basic approaches. And for today's discussion, I'm just going to use major chords because this is a very, very, very elaborate set of exercises, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. So, if it's all right with you, I'm going to just give you a 5-second, well, it might be more than 5-second, shot of what we're going to play. Are we ready? You must have to memorize this. Here it comes. I'm going to blast it at you right now. Kyle, you can see that, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So one thing you'll see is that this arpeggio setup is set not to be 2 full octaves. It's an octave and a seventh. And I'm going to switch this off, and I'm going to tell you why. If we play in 2 octaves, it often gets into the point of being a rudiment versus something that becomes a practical application in an improvised solo. I don't know if you feel like that, but sometimes when I play stuff and I'm practicing it, I'm working really hard at it, it's cool, but it doesn't feel like it ever gets into my soloing. So by just eliminating that top full octave, and I'm going to play again so you can hear it. With the top C in this case, or B flat concert. I'm sorry, I'm a B flat instrument. Maybe I have a C trumpet somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. But that top B flat, that feels much more like a rudiment to me. So back to the screen share, shall we? We're going to be doing a fair amount of this. So the line right under the prep exercise, and you want to do the prep exercise in every key. You'll see there's 4 approaches, 1 to the root, 1 to the third, 1 to the fifth, and 1 to the seventh. Again, I'm going to turn it off because you don't need to see it at the moment. But sometimes I've seen arpeggio exercises like this, where you're going, where you're doing them all in succession. And I think that's nice. I think that's wonderful. And if you're working on flow, that's a beautiful thing. But also, for me, I don't find that as much of it being a practicality and getting it in my playing. So what I like to do is play them one at a time. And the way I think about it versus the guide tone. Remember we talked a few minutes ago. Guide tone. Guide tone is something where we hit the note and then we react to it. So in other words, say C was my guide tone and I needed to get to C. Often if I'm in a downbeat, did you see what I just did at the very end? That is where we're going with this information. Guide tones are almost like you don't prepare the note, so it sounds like you're downbeat oriented every time you play. Bebop, and the beauty of bebop is you have this ability to do this interweaving and inside and outside and moving all around while basically saying the same thing. So, the world's best musical run-on sentence is bebop, I would say. Back to this exercise, I'm going to play that first line for you again. And Kyle, just let me know if anybody has questions in this, because there's going to be a bunch of questions.
Right.
Here's the third line, which is the example to the root. You're preparing the root. So it's no longer happening on the downbeat. So it's not. What that happens to sound like, I'm practicing an arpeggio, which is cool because we all need arpeggios. But it's not as much of a physical, like, I have to practice an exercise F major. Exercise B flat major. For me, it's like, I'm still doing my weaving. And that's just the approach to the root. If you listen slowly, and I'll do it slowly, which is hard for us trumpet players to do, right? We're all in the Ricky Bobby school of trumpet practicing, which is we have to go fast. If I go slow, I like putting a certain emphasis on the first approach note. In this case, we're doing a double chromatic approach from above. What if I were to tell you, this is where you need to get your calculators out now. Between single and double chromatic approaches, we have 12 basic ways to approach a note. Well, okay, there's 12 keys, there's 4 chord tones, and basically, when you start doing major, minor, dominant, diminished, augmented, sus, there's basically 12 different chords that you could choose from. Now, I'm a trumpet player. I can't count past 3, but I'll let you do the math on this. It's a very elaborate exercise. This is another reason why I love it so much. Kyle, any questions, comments, yeah buts? Oh, I can't. Sorry. I'm good. I didn't say it again.
Nothing so far. I think it's a sleepy
cool.
Sunday here.
No, that's good. I'm sleeping myself. So, wake me up when it's over. But the cool thing about this is that when you approach other chord tones, be it 3, 5, and 7, you get these very beautiful sounds. And here's my favorite part. You get wrong notes. Wrong notes. What did Miles Davis say? Everybody misquotes this, by the way. You know, he says, he didn't say there are no wrong notes. That's what people say. He says, do not fear mistakes because there are none. There's a big difference between wrong note and not fearing a mistake. We always could do the Miles thing where you play it 4 times and then it's all right, you know. Or you have to play a certain standard the Miles way or the right way. So, case in point would be like, well, you needn't, which there's a lot of people who play it the Miles way and not the actual way that Monk intended. So I'm going to now play you the approach with the screen share to the third. The cool thing on this is then when we go to the third, you'll see it's got an F sharp in there. Now we know, if you know major chords, the chord that truly, in my opinion, defines a major chord is actually the sharp 11 because it's the most beautiful static note. That's why if you're ever playing a ballad and you want to just end on the prettiest note, you can end on that F sharp and you'll be like the hero for life. But this case, the F sharp is in this approach because we're approaching E, the third, and we're doing a double chromatic approach from above. So F sharp, F natural, and E. So it sounds a little different than the first one, but it still has this same kinetic motion. So you hear this sort of line that you're still playing the arpeggio, but you're going in and out of it a little bit differently. Hope you understand that. And this is a good thing that when you come back and watch this session again, hopefully, you can grab your instrument and play along. So again, when you play these approaches, it's vitally important to put that emphasis on the approach note because you're training the approach note. Because what we're going to try to do is, if this music is a downbeat-oriented music, instead of hitting the note, we're going, I know I'm hitting the note, but I'm already prepping it 5 different ways or 12 different ways, hopefully. So if we go to the approach on the 5, I'm going to turn this off again for a second. Then you have, this is a pretty big Charlie Parker one if I do another approach. I call them the double-double. The double-double, or daily double, thank you, Jeopardy, is the double chromatic approach from above and below. If I do that to the 5, and you have all these sounds that now sound like bebop, but is it bebop? No, I'm just literally playing. In that case, I was doing the approach and playing a downward scale. But maybe my favorite approach is the one to the 7th, because when I was a youngster, a wee young laddie growing up in the state of Maine, approaching the 7 was like, it wasn't allowed in my state, actually. I think there was a constitutional amendment that said you can't put this note in. And in this case, if we're going to quickly share that one more time with you, you see now to the 7th, we have a C sharp. You cannot play a C sharp in C major. It is against the law in the state of Maine. But if you do it in a seamless way, you don't necessarily hear the C sharp. You don't go, oh my goodness, he's playing the flat 9 on a major chord. That's not permitted. You have this connectivity that just pushes you through the line of the phrase. For me, this was the aha, the desert island, the most beautiful exercise that I ever practiced. And on the trumpet, when you start approaching it in different keys, like if I play that in F major, it's not so much fun. You're going up to a very high note, but you're trying to not necessarily play it like a physical exercise. You're trying to play it as a kinetic flow exercise. So this is like the absolute tip of the iceberg when it comes to doing this, because like I said, there's 12 different approaches. So say you did that double chromatic, I call it the double approach, which is 2 from above or 2 from below, or actually I'll switch it around. I'll do 2 from below and 2 from above. Now you have this sound that's like, are you playing an arpeggio or are you playing a line? And my answer is yes, because you're doing both. And when you listen to the fluidity of the great bebop musicians, when they're they're doing all that sort of like, it almost sounds like they're just doing this pitter-patter snake-like smooth connectivity between notes. And I still practice this every day. And I've been practicing it for a long time. And some days, like they say, some days you feel like a nut, some days you don't. And some days it's great, and some days it's not so great because, maybe my trumpet doesn't want to cooperate, or maybe my fingers don't want to cooperate, or maybe my brain doesn't want to cooperate, or maybe I'm just going too fast. So the big thing with how you approach these approaches is to take them in a very slow, fundamental way. Don't play all 12 approaches. And I didn't write the 12 approaches because I didn't want people to be overwhelmed with that sheer amount of information. This is one thing I see often with my students when they come into lessons. They're like, I'm ready. They're excited. I'm ready. This is going to be amazing. Let's check it out. And they want to conquer the world. Well, conquering the world is great back, when the world was a lot more simplistic, when you were Genghis Khan, perhaps, go left. Okay. All right, great. Oh, there's a village there. Oh, okay. Moving on. We're not going to talk about that. That's for another session.
Hey, Trent.
Yeah.
Question from Dan. How do you recommend to apply and practicing this on tunes?
This is an awesome question. How do you play it on a tune? So say you're playing, Kyle, name a standard tune that you like.
Solar.
Okay, so if I'm playing in Solar, right? What I'm going to try to do is put my earpiece in. I didn't drop it, at least, and I get to the F chord, right? Where I did in that case a couple different approaches, and maybe I do it more metronomically and not as fast as to save time. But I'm going to go be-ba-doo-ba-da, Remember, guide tones are lovely. They're fantastic. But I might literally just go beep-a-doop-a-da. So I leave the sort of the through composed part I might leave out. But the other part is like, now I am going for the guide tone. That is a guide tone. That's the entire drive of that 4-bar phrase. But instead of just hitting the A natural on the 5th bar, I'm going to prepare it. And then I could maybe just, one day I'm going to go 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3. One day I might go. One day I might go. Where that's a one whole step below, one half step from above to there. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can go to preparing the note. So, to answer Dan's question a little bit more, maybe you pick one. I pick one approach a week. So in this case, for anybody who's starting, if you take the initiative to do this exercise, do the double chromatic from above for a while, 2, 3, 4 weeks even. Be patient with it, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But be patient with it, and then whatever tune you're working on, say you're working on a few tunes of the week, you might even write out on a blank piece of manuscript next to the lead sheet where you're going to put those approaches in. So if you're playing something like Stella or something, you could literally write, okay, what chords do I mean when I'm playing? Maybe I play well, and what ones maybe I don't play so well, and maybe I want to really emphasize lows. Those become target points where you're like literally like boom, and you don't play anything else in the exercise. Eventually, through the course of this type of practicing, what happens, and for me it was about 4 to 5 months of doing this. I was playing a faculty concert at the college where I taught up in Maine, and we were doing Birth of the Cool, which was actually, pretty cool. Oh, gosh, it's too early for bad puns. But it was interesting because I recorded the rehearsals, and by like the 3rd rehearsal, I was trying to do some of these approaches, and I was like, oh man, it's almost like you have this like golden ticket to get you inside and outside of chords without, not where you like are just obsessed about like certain, chord tones, but like I mentioned earlier, this type of playing is really fun when you're blanked out, when your mind is like, I've got all these other things. Oh, what did the piano player play? Oh, cool. Where am I in what's for dinner? Like all these things that you're thinking about in the battle of performance. Say you're playing Donna Lee, right? All that stuff I was playing was a fast version of these basic approaches. And you're saying, well, man, I want to do that, but you still got to practice the approaches first. Questions, comments, yeah, buts?
Yeah, speaking of the approaches, question from Jessica. Is the double chromatic approach from below the same idea? Example, B flat, B, C, targeting the root.
100%. 100%. So if I did that same, I'm going to pull up the screen and do a double for you. Thank you. That's like perfect question. Awesome. So if I go back, so now I'm on C major, but instead of doing, I'm doing this. And the cool thing about that approach, if you heard it, is that you're actually going around that arpeggio. So you're not relegating yourself to I have to play an octave. And you don't have to play these in 2 octaves. If you have some technical limitations on your instrument, like the trumpet, play them just to the 7th, but not the full octave. And the reason for that is you want to have that symmetry without feeling it like it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 1 or 1, 3, 5, 1. I hope that makes sense. But yes, exactly. So if you do the double chromatic to say for instance, if I was playing a minor 7 arpeggio, this is gonna for everybody who's out there, this might blow your mind for a second. This is kind of cool. If I do a minor 7 arpeggio and I approach the 5 with the approach that you mentioned, Jessica, I get this. What is that sound? Oh, it's a blues scale. Did you know that the blues scale was literally it's a minor 7 arpeggio with a double chromatic approach to the 5 below. Okay, that was too fast. That was the coffee, I'm sorry. But
no problem. That kind of actually also answered a follow-up question that, just in case you have more you want to talk about on that. Do you change the approaches depending on the target chord quality?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a magnificent question too. I would say the bass approaches you're going to practice with over every chord. So, like, say it's week 7, and you're doing a half diminished arpeggio, right? Depending on what notes are in the chord, maybe you do change it up. For instance, if you do the arpeggio to the 7th on the half diminished chord from above, it sounds kind of strange. I'll show you. I mean, literally, you're basically playing the arpeggio. It's not as effective. But if I did a double from below to the 7th, now you have something a little bit different, and it sounds a little bit more hip than maybe what you did before. So I'd say that's an experimentation that you should definitely do, because you can use the construct of the arpeggio. The arpeggio, for us, the arpeggio is like when you were kids, you played tag, right? And you said, "No, man, you can't touch me. I'm on goal. You can't touch me." The arpeggio is the safe point. The arpeggio is the safe point where you know the feel of that. So throwing the approaches in is just like, oh, cool, I can bounce that off of that. So wonderful question, and hopefully a moderately satisfactory answer. But
so is it kind of a exploration process to figure out which ones you like on which chords, and you just kind of have to pay attention?
There is a lot of that, but there's also a listening point, because remember what I said on the major. If I use that double on the 5, that's Charlie Parker. If you hear that, you hear it. And the approach that I played at the very beginning when I was playing that solo on Kim number 1 is a single chromatic approach from above and a double or chromatic approach from below. Then you can even, there are other ways to practice this. You don't necessarily have to have it in the arpeggio practice. If you did that in the arpeggio, it's cool. It's totally cool. But you can even just do, sometimes when I practice that approach, I do the approach and then downward a scale, because for me, it reminds me a lot of like what Charlie Parker or people like Clifford Brown, who's a master of this sort of, David Baker had the beautiful term enclosure, right? I love that term. I don't necessarily think about it, but I think about it just as a flow. So like you could do that in any which way that you tend to practice. And in terms of practicing this is something that one of my teachers later on told me too. Is like, sometimes we get in the habit of playing things in the exact same routine. In this case, maybe the circle of 4ths or 5ths. You might want to change that up, so maybe it's not just the circle of 5ths. So maybe you do this 2 series of whole tone scales. So you do C, and the next one you do is D. It's kind of shocking when you do that versus like C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. We get into a habit, and that is a habit of our ears are telling us this is upcoming. So that ears prepare for the sound that's going to be played. So maybe if you start on C and then go down to B flat, even that can like get you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And when you're out of your comfort zone, you grow, I think, a little bit personally. So hope that makes a little sense.
So another question from Moses. As someone who is just getting into bebop, are these exercises a good place to start, or is there a good way to simplify them for beginners?
Yeah, so I would say you might have to simplify for younger musicians that have maybe technical limitations on the horn. You definitely might want to simple the range part of it. These are keyboard exercises. Charlie Bernakis was a pianist. So he gave me these exercises. He's like, man, you can play trumpet. You can figure this out, And then once I complained about it, and he goes, oh man, Randy Brecker did that for me in a lesson last week. So, and I was like, yeah, never mind, I'm out. So anyway, it's like, sadtromone.com. I would say, make the comfort zone really, attainable. And that could be simply where you're doing where I'm going the circle of fourths to each approach and really cementing that sound in. Because it's a sound and it's a feel. Louis Armstrong, you can't play anything you can't hear.
Right. So in that example, it's maybe not even worrying about what chord you're on, but just picking a note and doing approaches to it.
Yeah. Get comfortable. Yeah. Like you could literally say, I'm on note. Like you could say it. Kyle, what note am I on?
F.
Okay. F. Okay. I'm on F. And I've got to do a double chromatic approach from below. You can make flashcards with this too. It would be really cool to make flashcards. So you can get into the lingo. I wish I should have shared that, but nobody can read my handwriting, so it would be like impossible. But like, D above, boom. D C above to C to S below. Double from above. I can't even say it. Double from above. What's a blove? That's a new mountain formation in Tibet. I didn't know if you guys knew that. So double from above, single from below sounds like. But that's the thing. You said F, and I'm transposing out there. Sorry, but like that's the point. It's like you want to be able to like not have to think about this, because what that does, that is that musical cartilage that when you're stuck in a solo and you're trying to go from point A to point B and there's like this humongous wall in between, the wall gets, each time you do it, it's like one brick in that wall gets chipped out and you can actually see the other side and you're like, oh, that looks pretty good. And then you chip out another one. And before you know it, you could slide out. Now, I would need a lot of bricks to be chipped out, but, I'm still working on it like everybody else. That's the good thing about it. But Moses, that's an awesome question. We have to be comfortable in our musical shell. And part of the musical shell requires the fundamentals, And this is, one of my teachers always said, you got to put the fun in fundamentals. But, like, for me, this exercise is fun, even after 20 years of doing it. I'm seeing stuff on my instrument. I'm trying to get over things that are technically not cool on my instrument. Maybe the range issues, articulation issues, intonation issues. There's a kinetic feel to these exercises that I truly love. And I think every musician who wants to learn to play bebop. Now, there are other books that you should check out if you want to play bebop. David Baker has a couple really good books on bebop. One, I think they're called How to Play Bebop. Now, hey, how cool is that? I say, myself, if you buy the Charlie Parker Omnibook, you will learn how to play bebop. Not just by playing the solos, but by playing the solos, you get this, freedom of tempo, of course. But you get something like Charlie Parker's solo on Anthropology. I think it's the second chorus he does. I'd be like, come on, is that not like the most perfect 4-bar phrase? And what is he doing? Well, he's doing a single approach from below and a whole step from above. And he's like, you can actually really quickly analyze that sound. And then you say, oh, what if I wanted to play that in another key? Whatever. You're just We're musicians, we steal, right? Clark Terry says there's 3 stages of being an improvising musician. Imitation. So, who's the greatest bebop player of all time? Charlie Parker. Let's imitate him by playing his solos. And that's so great because you can just play along with the recordings. Then assimilation. Assimilation like the Borg. And this kind of looks like I'm a Borg, by the way. It's kind of cool, you know? It's like all of a sudden if I had a little different, if I wore my sunglasses, I could totally be, okay, anyways. But the thing about it is, if I want to play a solo in the style of Charlie Parker, am I going to sound like Charlie Parker? No, there's only one Charlie Parker. But I can use that as something that I can say, well, this is when I play on rhythm changes. I mean, there's so much of this stuff that's in that. So, yeah, that's assimilation, and then innovation, which I'll never hit. But you know, maybe in 500 years, I'll get to some sort of innovative stage in my playing. But I'm so into the imitation part of us learning to be musicians. And here's a big one: if you're a saxophone player, transcribe Clifford Brown. If you're a saxophone player, transcribe Peter Bernstein. You try to get away from your primary instrument, because for years I only heard in trumpet pitch, and I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like I could hear the trumpet notes really well, but then when I would try to transcribe Sonny Rollins, it was a challenge for me because it was a different color, sometimes a different register. But now the people I transcribe now I transcribe a lot of Peter Bernstein, Kurt Rosenwinkel, Joel Fromm, who I mentioned before we started this session. You know, these musicians that when I hear them, I can't wait to go home and practice. So that was a long answer to your question.
That's great.
More questions?
Yeah, I got another one from Dan.
Awesome.
You recently posted a video on playing tight, which was great.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could talk more about your philosophy on that and maybe elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, so we're moving away from the improv things, but this is a little trumpet thing, so anybody who's watching the trumpet, my concept of playing trumpet is simple. And I'll tell you this. Kyle, you play guitar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an obvious question. You got guitars behind you. I know. I'm a trumpet player. The brain sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Has anybody ever given you a high five for you playing a high note on your guitar?
Never once.
And that's a shame. That's just a shame. But trumpet players, you know, you hit a high note and they throw rose petals. You know, and it's literally in the clouds in the sky part. It's unbelievable. There's like this sort of athletic thing when it comes to playing a brass instrument that, because we conceptualize it differently. We conceptualize things as a brass instrument on a vertical sphere. But if you're playing guitar, it's like right here, right? It's not, I mean, maybe you could do that. But or if you're playing piano and this is the keyboard on the piano, you hit the note over there, okay. Or you hit the note over here. The amount of energy required, this is a gross simplification, is similar. But if you play a high note on the trumpet, you got to do all these things. I want to play tight as in compact, as in everything's close. So if I go, where I'm just like, I feel like I'm just tapping the keys on the keyboard. Why do I have to do something different? Why do I have to go, hold on. Why do I have to do so? You don't. Well, prove it otherwise. No, that's for next week's class. But the concept of that is being compact. And it's also the concept of being, when you're playing tight, that everything is accessible. Like these 2-octave arpeggio exercises. You know, when you do them in F major, you could do some pedal tones, because the range of the trumpet doesn't allow us to play in that low register. Otherwise, you got to play it above high F. So you're doing that. And you're playing that, but I'm not going like crazy to get to that top note. I'm just going, the greatest trumpet players or brass players in general, like you watch a video of Clark Terry playing without audio, you can't tell what he's playing. You can't tell if he's playing a low note or high note. You can't, Winton. You have a great trumpet player on your faculty, and he's the same way, Charlie. So, you know, like an effortless trumpet player. Now he'll tell you, hey, there's some effort, you know, but it's eliminating as much effort as possible, because then you can focus on making a beautiful sound. So in your practicing, you're trying to conscientiously shrink. You're trying not to move. A lot of times I have my students playing in front of mirrors, because sometimes they look like they're chewing a wad of big league chew when they're playing in their registers. It's like, why? Simple question. Why work? I don't like to work, so I'm not going to.
Kind of doing what you can to make it easy.
Always, you know, make it as it's easy is the wrong. It's like easy and hard. Those are terms in musician world that don't apply. It's familiar or unfamiliar, right? But in this case, it can be close and tight. Close and tight. Close means attainable. Oh, that's just close. I can just reach out and touch that. Tight can be not. Oh, this feels terrible. For me, I'm very fortunate that most days the trumpet feels pretty good. And I'm allergic to metal like silver and gold, so I have to be very careful on, you know, what I play, and that's an additional fun part of my life when it comes to playing a trumpet mouthpiece. But oh wait, I could just play. You knew it was coming. I could just play the world's largest mouthpiece. This is what I use for when my students don't practice their arpeggios. So no, I just go. All right, okay, so I'll be here all week today. So, but I don't know if that answered your question, Dan. I'm happy to talk all things trumpet, but then everybody else will really fall asleep. So, more questions, comments, yeah, buts. Hmm? In the meantime, I'm going to play. No, I'm just kidding. Oh. Anything for anybody out there? Oh, I don't have you. Hold on. For some reason, I don't have you on. There we go. Unmute.
Oh, there we go. I was hitting the space bar, but maybe it didn't take.
I dig it. Wait, did you hit the space bar?
So, as far as figuring out these approaches with different chord types and in tunes, do you find that you have a particular chord quality you seem to revert to doing this more on, or do you spread it out fairly equally?
Yeah. Again, awesome question. So how I approach some of these. First, let's talk about keys. So if I do 2 keys a day, and today's my day off, which is Sunday, I get to rest. Woo! And if I'm good about this, then I do the keys the rest of the week. But Sunday's my emergency day for if I miss a day. So Monday, I'm always doing a easy key and a hard key. No, familiar, unfamiliar. So Monday's C and D flat. Tuesday's D and E flat. Wednesday's E and F. So you're doing only 2 keys. So you're not doing 12 keys. 12 like I said, if you do the math on this, it's crazy the amount of repetitions you have to do to fully complete this. Tens of thousands. It's like, okay, yeah. So I try to eliminate that. In terms of the chord type, all of my students start on major, and we do the first approach, which is the double from above to major. Then the next week we do minor arpeggios with the double from below. Then the third week is dominant 7th with the double from above, double from below. The fourth week is half diminished or fully diminished, depending on which way I want to move them. And then it's double from below, double from above. And then as we go through more and more different chord types, we could do the single approaches, ba-ba-da, where you're doing a single from below and above, and you're doing a single from above and below. And then you do the combinations of single with doubles, like Charlie Parker, which is that single from above and double from below. But there's no favorite, unfortunately, in terms of the chord type. Yeah, I mean, okay, I love a dominant 7, sharp 5, okay. But for me, it's the biggest thing here is feeling the sound and the connectivity between the approach to the quality that you're trying to exude upon. That's it. So, but a fantastic question. Time amount, this is, oh man, when I did this the first few weeks, I was doing these hours a day, and it kind of stunk. I'm the type of practitioner that either does something like full on, or I don't do it at all. So I really immersed myself in this because I trusted my teacher saying, this is going to be the way that you can get this feeling of freedom when you're playing. Not only freedom of playing when you play fast. So it's like, this is great for playing fast because you built all of these connective things into your playing, but also the feeling of like, I'm not stuck on a chord tone. Like when I look at a lead sheet and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. It's not much like that at all anymore. Maybe I just sort of start picking out certain notes I want to play on that chord tone. Clark Terry would call some of these notes sweet notes, you know? I was like, whoa, does one taste better? And he's like, no, man, it maximizes the value of the chord tone. So you're saying you're playing on Take the A Train, right? Start slowly implementing. Yeah, I ended 4 bars early, but you don't hear me play the last 4. But you can start implementing some of this stuff in your playing where I'm always doing these single approaches to some of these nice notes that I want to play. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Great.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so any final questions, comments, but man, so it's not like I can't just like in terms of a practicality say, okay, you're going to be able to do this 2 weeks and then move on. This is very much a user-specific thing. Sometimes my students take a month of just getting the bass arpeggio, which I'm going to share that screen one more time. The bass arpeggio is not... It's not a 2-octave arpeggio, it's an octave and a 7th. And that really messes up a lot of my trumpet students because they're used to playing things in an octave. It's amazing when you take just one note out, how much that can change something. So they might spend a month just playing their major arpeggios. But that prep that they do in that month, when they start implementing and popping in those approaches, is an amazing benefit. So,
Awesome. So
yeah.
2 things here. One from Joel Riddle or Riddell's. This wave of the hand from Joel to Trent. Going to take your advice on the close aspect. Even old dogs are willing to learn new tricks. So that's great.
Yeah, that's why we practice.
Also, we got time for about maybe just a parting thought. Any thought you have, or maybe a top thing you got from your time with Clark.
Yes, I'll tell you my top. Well, I will tell you my top thing. I sort of briefly mentioned it, and I'll tell you because I was too embarrassed to ask Clark, but then I asked another teacher. So when I would play gigs with Clark, I mean, talk about no pressure. You're just playing with one of the world's best musicians and the best trumpet player I've ever met. But he would often say to me, he'd be like, "Yeah, man, you really need to learn how to play those sweet notes." And this is definitely a swing era term, sweet notes. But I was so embarrassed. I was like, man, does one note taste better than the other? I mean, like literally, I was like, what the? This was pre-Al Gore internet times, folks. So like, I couldn't like just go on Google and say, what's a sweet note? So what ended up is like, I didn't ask. I was too embarrassed to ask Clark because I was like, I know everything. I'm a trumpet player. So of course, all trumpet players know everything. Okay, moving right along. So how about those Kansas City Royals? First place, actually, which is quite a shocker. And the Red Sox, Dan, are in first place, baby. That's what I'm talking about. So you can't take Boston out of this guy, which is really bad. It's really bad when I'm in Chief. I literally live 2 miles away from like the Chiefs football stadium. Okay, beep. tangent back up. So later on, years later, I was playing gigs with Herb Pomeroy. Herb Pomeroy was one of the founders of the Berklee School of Music, and he was also an incredible trumpet player because he played on 2 Charlie Parker albums. Played with Duke Ellington's band a brief stint, but maybe one of the greatest musical minds I ever met. Genius, true genius. But he said that to me on a gig. We were sharing a gig, and he's like, man, you play great, but you really don't know what the sweet notes are. And I said, hold on, because I could ask him. I wasn't feeling embarrassed. So first and foremost, students out there, always ask your teachers questions. We want you to engage with us. We want questions because it's the way you grow is by asking questions. And they might seem simple to you, like sweet note, come on. This was such a life-changing moment for me. And this is as someone who improvises and someone who taught students and still does for years, this is something I teach them very quickly. A sweet note is a non-diatonic chord tone. Simple. Non-diatonic chord tone. So when you're playing a song like A Train, you get to the second chord, that concert G sharp is a non-diatonic note. We're in the key of C. There's no G sharp in the key of C, baby. If there is, I want to learn your scale. So that's cool. So part of this, and this is also akin to bebop playing, is part of this is having the ability to give that information. I'm going to take another song like, if you take a song like There Will Never Be Another You, you get the tunes in F major for trumpet or E flat, but when we get to the 4th bar, we have a G7, sharp 9 if you want, but that B, or the C sharp for us, that's a sweet note. That's a note that's non-diatonic chord tone. So almost when I'm playing, which then second one becomes that D flat concert or E flat because we're doing the 2-5 into the next section. These notes are not necessarily, you want to go for the guide tone again? Yeah, okay. But it's a goal note. I have to play it. Right now, where I am as a musician, the type of music I want to share, if someone doesn't play that, it leaves me a little empty. It's like having a sandwich without any meat or vegetable or anything. It's just 2 pieces of bread. Jam sandwiches, Clark would call it. You know, you're missing out of this really colorful area. So having the ability to go, that is like, it's like a guidepost for sure, but a guidepost that I know I'm going to be able to play, and I know I'm going to hopefully be able to prep it to make it sound like I'm not just hitting the note when you need me to play. So, sweet tones. And if anybody's out there, I have a on my YouTube channel, it's a shop channel, but I have maybe 60, I think we just did our 67th free mini lesson out there. A lot of it's trumpet stuff, sorry, but one of them is this concept of sweet tones, and I elaborate more upon it. So, and of course, anybody can reach out to me, info@austinCustomBrass.com, and pick my brain about this. I'm more than happy to elaborate further on it. But
awesome,
sweet
that's
tones,
great.
Sweet notes. It's such a great way of approaching any new standard that you're working on. To really to maximize the bang for your buck on the value. And it was funny because Emmett Cohen's been doing some beautiful concerts in his living room for the past year plus. They're on Mondays, and he just had Harry Allen and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the great cornet player who has the oh my gosh. So but anyway, this is terrible. Dan, I see you watching. The great cornetist who played, he has the coolest cornet ever. I'm gonna have to look. Man, this is terrible. But
you can't put me on the spot.
Okay. I know. It's terrible. I think my coffee just ran out. But Harry, at least I know. I played with Harry a few different times. So Warren Vacher. Oh my goodness gracious. But they played A-Train. And when you hear these two older statesmen of music play, it is in their DNA musically to play this information. They can't not. And the way they do it is they bring a level of authenticity that every musician should strive for. So say you're playing ESP and that's your vibe. Well, great. I can't really play on ESP. It's not really my vibe. It's not really what I hear, and that's okay. Like every time I try, I want to, but it's just not what I hear. I am deeply embedded into bebop and swing, and those are my mentors, Clark and Clifford and Bird, and so those are the people that I choose for my playing. But I will tell you though, if I hear someone playing a standard and they're not giving me those sweet tones, it doesn't mean like I have to do it every time, but you could just hear when someone can do it, and you can hear when someone doesn't really know the full story. It's kind of like, you're reading those choose your own adventure books. They're always going on the same page, and you're like, okay, yeah, you've already told me that, or man, you're not really filling me in on any of the story. I just fell off the cliff, sort of thing. So.
All right. Maybe that's a good place to wrap it up here.
Oh, great. Yeah. So.
Well, thanks so much, Trent.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It was a great masterclass. So everyone, please make sure you visit our festival website at mhcc.edu/JazzFestival for the full schedule of remaining events. You can also purchase festival merchandise there and learn how you can support the festival for the future. Thanks so much for tuning in, and hope to see you at the next event, which will be the Mel Brown Septet at 1 p.m. All right, thanks again, Trent.